The evening sun dipped low over the small American town, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple. The neon sign of Hank's Diner buzzed and flickered, half working as always, casting an uneven glow over the cracked parking lot. Inside, the clatter of plates and low hum of conversation created a cozy background rhythm. It was the kind of place where families gathered after church, where truckers stopped for coffee, and where veterans sometimes came just to feel a little less alone. But on this night, the peace shattered with the sudden roar of engines. 6 motorcycles thundered down the street and swung sharply into the lot. The chrome gleamed, pipes rattled, and exhaust fumes mixed with the sweet smell of frying bacon drifting from the diner. The bikers cut an intimidating sight, black leather vests patched with skulls, chains hanging loose from belts, and grins that promised trouble. Everyone in town knew this crew. They didn't ride in for pie and coffee, they rode in to dominate, to remind everyone that they owned whatever ground their boots hit. At that exact moment, Emily Carter was navigating her wheelchair up the concrete ramp by the diner entrance. She was a woman of about 35, with sharp eyes and a strong jaw softened by the kindness in her smile. Her army jacket, faded at the elbows, carried the patches of a medic who had served 3 tours overseas. Emily had been through fire before. A roadside bomb in Afghanistan had cost her left leg and left her fighting through months of surgeries and rehabilitation. But she carried herself with quiet dignity, her hair pulled back neatly, her hands steady as she pushed her chair forward. To her, the diner wasn't just a place to eat, it was where she came to be part of ordinary life again. The rumble of the motorcycles made her glance up. She recognized the type immediately, men who preyed on weakness, who mistook cruelty for strength. She had seen the same kind of smirk in the eyes of insurgents overseas. The lead biker cut his engine and swung off his Harley. His boots thudded on the pavement as he took a long look at Emily. Tattoos twisted like vines across his arms, and a cruel grin spread across his face. Well, what have we got here? He drawled loudly enough for the others to hear. A soldier girl on training wheels. The other bikers snickered, the sound sharp and ugly in the evening air. Emily kept her eyes on the ramp. She had learned in combat zones that sometimes the safest choice was to ignore the taunts, to conserve her strength. But the leader wasn't done. He stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Hey, I'm talking to you, hero. Where you think you're rolling? You gonna wheel yourself into battle?" His voice dripped with mockery. Inside the diner, forks froze midway to mouths. People shifted uneasily in their booths, eyes flicking toward the window. A mother pulled her young son closer, whispering for him not to look. Emily stopped her chair and looked up at the man. Her voice was calm, firm, and laced with the discipline of someone who had given and taken orders under fire. "Step aside," she said. The biker leaned closer, his breath sour with beer. "Or what?" He reached down with one meaty hand, as if he meant to tip her chair over just for fun. Emily's training kicked in. Her right hand shot up, fast as lightning, clamping around his wrist. With a sharp twist, controlled and precise, she bent it backward at an angle that made the biker yelp. He stumbled back, clutching his arm. The other bikers erupted in laughter, not at her strength, but at their leader's embarrassment. "You gonna let a cripple do that to you, man?" one of them hooted. The leader's face flushed crimson. He straightened, rage flickering in his eyes, and signaled to the others. 3 bikers stepped forward, circling Emily like wolves closing in on prey. One cracked his knuckles, another stomped his boot inches from her wheel. "Big mistake, soldier girl," one of them hissed. Emily's heart raced. She had been in ambushes before, she knew the feeling of being outnumbered. But fear wasn't in her vocabulary. She sat tall, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the men. Her voice came low, steady. "I've faced worse than you in places you couldn't survive for a day. Don't mistake this chair for weakness." Her words made them hesitate for just a second, but bullies rarely backed down when an audience was watching. One shoved her chair hard enough to tip it slightly to one side. Her wheels scraped against the pavement as she steadied herself, refusing to cry out. From inside, a young waitress gasped. "We need to call someone," she whispered to the manager. He hesitated, scared of what the bikers might do if police were called. But an older man at the counter pulled out his phone anyway. His hands shook as he whispered into it. "Yeah, it's happening again. She needs help, hurry." Back outside, Emily gripped her wheels tightly, every muscle in her arms tensed. She had fought to earn her freedom, to rebuild her life. She wasn't about to surrender to a pack of cowards now. The bikers closed in tighter. Their shadows stretched long in the fading light, swallowing her in a circle of menace. Laughter echoed around her, loud, mocking, cruel. The leader leaned down again, his voice low and venomous. "You should have stayed home, hero. Out here, you're nothing." Emily's jaw clenched. She didn't respond, but her silence carried a message: "You're wrong. I've always been more than you'll ever be." For long, tense minutes, the standoff held. The bystanders inside watched helplessly, some too afraid to move, others ashamed at their own inaction. And then, just when it seemed the bikers might finally act, the sound of engines rumbled from down the road. But this wasn't the erratic roar of motorcycles. These engines were heavier, deeper, moving with purpose. Headlights appeared, sweeping across the lot as 3 dark SUVs rolled in. They moved in formation, controlled and precise. The bikers froze, glancing at each other in confusion. Emily looked up, her breath catching. She recognized that kind of entrance. It was the way soldiers moved. Not chaotic, not random, tactical. The diner's windows rattled slightly as the SUVs braked to a stop. Doors swung open in near-perfect unison. Boots hit the pavement, steady and measured. Out stepped men with sharp eyes, squared shoulders, and the unmistakable aura of quiet authority. They didn't swagger. They didn't need to. The bikers, smirks wavered as realization set in. These weren't ordinary men. Emily's lips curved into the faintest smile of relief. She knew exactly who they were. The parking lot of Hank's diner was no longer silent laughter and the cruel taunts of bikers. It had shifted, charged with new energy the instant those 3 black SUVs rolled in. Their headlights swept across the cracked pavement like searchlights, cutting long shadows across the bikers who only minutes earlier had been so sure of their dominance. The vehicles didn't skid recklessly to a halt. They stopped with precision, forming a line like a protective wall between Emily and the road. The doors opened almost in unison, and 6 men stepped out, moving with the fluid coordination of a team that had trained side by side for years. They didn't wear uniforms, but they didn't need to. Their posture gave them away, the way they scanned the environment, the way their boots landed solid and sure, the way their eyes locked onto the threat without hesitation. These weren't ordinary veterans. These were Navy SEALs. The leader of the SEALs, a tall man with a closely cropped beard and steady eyes, stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried the weight of authority honed in battlefields far from this small town. "Step away from her." The bikers shifted, glancing at one another. Their leader, the same man Emily had twisted to the ground moments earlier, tried to laugh it off, though his voice cracked with unease. "And who exactly are you supposed to be? Her babysitters?" The SEAL leader didn't blink. His eyes swept over the group, calculating, measuring. "We're the men who make sure people like you remember what respect looks like." One of the bikers barked out a laugh, though it sounded forced. "There's 6 of us, and only," his words trailed off as he realized there were 6 SEALs too. 6 men, each standing with a calm readiness that made them look like a force of 20. The leader of the SEALs tilted his head slightly. "You think picking on a disabled veteran makes you tough? You're about to learn the difference between intimidation and real strength." Emily's eyes shimmered as she looked at them. Recognition dawned. These weren't strangers, they were men she had once patched up in dusty field hospitals, men whose blood she had mopped from her own hands as she fought to keep them alive. They had served together, bound by something deeper than friendship. Family. The biker leader scoffed again, but his confidence was slipping fast. He gestured toward Emily. "She put her hands on me first. We were just." The SEAL stepped forward so suddenly that the biker flinched back. His voice was low, almost gentle, but carried the edge of a knife. "Touch her again, and you won't walk away." The air grew heavy, charged like the moment before a storm. Bystanders from inside the diner finally began to trickle out, emboldened by the presence of the SEALs. Some had phones raised, recording. Others simply wanted to see justice unfold. Emily wheeled herself forward just a little, her voice steady. "You heard the man. Step aside. Leave." But bullies rarely backed down gracefully. The biker leader sneered, masking his fear with bluster. "You don't scare me. You think a couple of soldiers can." Before he could finish, one SEAL moved. Not a punch, not a shove, just one quick step into the biker's space, his presence overwhelming, his eyes locked. The biker stumbled back, his bravado crumbling under the weight of discipline he couldn't match. "Try me," the SEAL said softly. The silence that followed was deafening. The bikers shifted uneasily. Their earlier smirks had vanished, replaced by darting eyes and nervous glances toward their motorcycles. One finally muttered, "This ain't worth it, boss. Let's go." The leader hesitated, but when the SEALs took a collective step closer, he caved. "Fine, we're leaving." His voice cracked as he turned toward his Harley. Engines roared to life again, but this time the sound wasn't triumphant, it was retreat. One by one, the bikers sped out of the lot, their taunts silenced, their dominance shattered. When the last Harley disappeared into the night, a cheer rose from the bystanders. Some clapped, others shouted their thanks. A little boy on the sidewalk pumped his fist and yelled, "Yeah. Go Navy." His mother hushed him, but not before smiling through tears. Emily exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. She turned her chair toward the SEALs, her eyes glistening. "You didn't have to come." The bearded SEAL, the one who had spoken first, knelt beside her chair so his eyes were level with hers. "Of course we did," he said gently. "You patched us up when we were broken. You gave us the chance to come home. We don't forget that, ever." Her throat tightened. For years she had struggled with the feeling that her sacrifice had left her behind while others moved forward. But in that moment, surrounded by the men she once saved, she realized she had never been forgotten. The other SEALs gathered close, their presence forming a protective circle around her. One of them clapped her lightly on the shoulder. "Family looks out for family. Always." From the crowd, a diner patron finally spoke up, his voice heavy with shame. "We should have stepped in sooner, we saw what they were doing and we just froze." Emily shook her head softly. "Fear is natural, but courage means acting even when you're afraid. These men know that, and so do I." The SEAL leader stood again, addressing the onlookers. "Tonight you all saw what disrespect looks like, and what standing up against it looks like too. Remember this moment. No one who serves this country should ever face that kind of humiliation." The crowd murmured in agreement, many bowing their heads. The lesson was sharp, unforgettable. Emily's hand brushed the wheel of her chair. She felt taller, prouder than she had in years. The SEALs hadn't just defended her, they had reminded everyone watching of a truth that should never be forgotten. Respect is owed, not optional. As the night settled again and the SEALs guided Emily into the diner, the neon sign above flickered once more. But now, the light seemed steadier, brighter, as if even the diner itself stood a little taller in honor of its heroes. Moral of the story. Real strength isn't found in gangs, intimidation, or fear. It's found in honor, loyalty, and standing up for those who sacrificed for others. Bullies fade. Brotherhood and respect endure.